For years, David Mann kept his pain hidden behind a warm smile and funny performances. But when the words, "David Mann exposes Tyler Perry," appeared online, fans everywhere felt shock and disbelief. The hidden scandal finally revealed was not just a Hollywood story. It was a painful journey of loyalty, faith, broken promises, and the quiet courage it takes to speak up after decades of silence. David Mann, the actor loved by millions as Mr. Brown, has now shared a side of Tyler Perry the world never saw. And what he said has shaken fans because it tells a story that was buried behind laughter and gospel songs for far too long. At first glance, it looked like an unbreakable friendship. David Mann and Tyler Perry seemed like brothers who brought faith-based entertainment to millions. Together, they created unforgettable moments on stage and screen. Shows like Meet the Browns and movies like Medea Goes to Jail were more than comedy. They felt like ministry, messages of hope mixed with humor. Fans saw them as a family, and David's character, Mr. Brown, became a household name known for loud suits, silly jokes, and off-key singing. But while audiences laughed, David carried something heavy inside. He later shared that from the very beginning, there was an imbalance in their partnership. Tyler Perry wrote, directed, produced, and acted, keeping tight control over everything. David, on the other hand, was left in a supporting role both on screen and off. People close to the productions whispered about old contracts that kept David and others from sharing fairly in the huge profits. Even as Perry became a millionaire, David felt stuck in deals made back when Perry was still building his empire. Yet David kept silent, loyal to what he thought was brotherhood and ministry. The silence came at a cost. Behind the scenes, there were moments that showed the cracks in their friendship. During the making of Meet the Browns, things reached a painful turning point. David had invested his heart in an episode that would show a softer side of Mr. Brown. For once, audiences would see beyond the silly jokes and see the real man inside. But just before filming, Perry canceled the scene, saying it was too deep for the character. For David, it was heartbreaking. This was more than just a script change. It felt like his creative voice did not matter, even after years of loyalty. Feeling hurt, David finally spoke up. On set, he gathered his courage and told Perry, "This is not what we started with. You say it is about God and the people, but now it feels like it is about control. Where do I fit in now?" People who were there say Perry's reply was cold, reminding David that it was his vision, and anyone unhappy could leave. That moment marked the beginning of David pulling away, though he continued to smile for fans and do interviews. But David Mann was not the only one who felt pushed aside. Over time, other familiar faces from Perry's productions seemed to disappear quietly. Cassie Davis, who played Aunt Bam and brought so much humor and strength to the shows, was suddenly missing from projects. Insiders said she had challenged some creative choices, especially when the shows included more adult humor and less gospel influence. Patrice Lovely, who played Hattie Mae Love, also felt sidelined. Though fans loved her, she reportedly felt like her creative input was ignored, and she was there only to fill the screen. Tasha Smith, known for her powerful role as Angela, had a more public falling out. She later spoke about struggling to be heard on set and feeling boxed in by Perry's tight control. Many fans did not notice these disappearances at first, but now, looking back, it became clear there was a pattern. For years, David Mann's silence helped keep Perry's empire strong. David's image as the loyal friend who never spoke out added to the belief that everything behind the scenes was fine. But something changed. In a recent podcast, David spoke honestly for the first time. When asked about loyalty in Hollywood, he replied, "Loyalty without respect becomes servitude. I gave my loyalty, but I was not always respected." Fans immediately guessed he was speaking about Tyler Perry. Social media buzzed with questions. Was Mr. Brown, the character that made millions laugh, really played by a man who had been kept silent all these years? This story is not just about money or fame. It has a deeper spiritual struggle. David Mann and his wife Tamala Mann have always been rooted in faith and gospel music. Together, they built a life around sharing hope and love with audiences. But as Perry's shows grew more focused on adult themes and less on gospel values, David and Tamala felt torn. They were grateful for the opportunities Perry had given them, but they worried about the direction the work was taking. Tamala, who played Cora alongside David's Mr. Brown, was David's strength in private. Friends say she encouraged him to choose peace over staying in something that hurt his spirit. She reportedly told him, "You don't have to say it to everyone, but you need to be honest with yourself." David listened, and together they made a quiet choice. Instead of fighting loudly, they stepped away and built their own projects focused on faith and family. The final break came because of a promise that felt deeply personal to David. Back in 2017, Perry had talked about creating a new show centered entirely on Mr. Brown, a character David had brought to life for over 20 years. David was excited, shared ideas, and kept his schedule open, ready to start filming. But the show never happened. Instead, Perry launched a new comedy series with a different cast, using similar family themes. Insiders said some of the ideas came straight from David's private pitches. For David, this betrayal cut deeper than anything before. It showed him that what he had seen as brotherhood and ministry was, in the end, business. When David finally spoke about it, he did so calmly, without anger. In an interview, the host asked if he had ever trusted someone who used faith to keep him loyal. David paused, then said, "The real pain is when someone who preaches God's name looks you in the eye and convinces you it is ministry, but really, it is manipulation." Listeners were stunned. Fans felt sadness, not just for David, but for the years he had carried this alone. Since speaking out, David has not tried to attack Perry. Instead, he and Tamala have focused on healing and building something true to who they are. Their gospel albums have reached the top of the charts, and fans love them for their honesty and faith. At concerts, Tamala sings her song, "Take Me to the King," and David stands by her side. But this time, he is not in character as Mr. Brown. He is there as David, the husband and father finally sharing his own story. At one show, David shared with the audience, "Sometimes God has to move you out of someone else's spotlight so he can shine a light on your truth." The audience cheered, not just because of the performance, but because they felt the meaning behind the words. It was no longer just entertainment. It was testimony of a man who had stayed loyal until it cost him his voice. Fans are left wondering why Perry has chosen silence. Some think he believes his reputation and past success will protect him. Others wonder if he will ever respond. But silence itself can say a lot, especially when fans remember how many people quietly stepped away from his productions over the years. David's story also shows something rare in Hollywood. He did not speak in anger or try to ruin anyone. He told the truth softly, with sadness, but also strength. By doing so, he allowed fans to see the man behind the comedy character. His courage has inspired others who once stayed silent to share small pieces of their own stories, hinting at a pattern of control that had gone unnoticed for too long. It is also important to see the spiritual struggle David faced. He had to choose between staying loyal to a friend who had given him opportunities and staying true to the faith that shaped him. In the end, David chose faith, family, and honesty over fear of losing work. Tamila's support was key. She had seen his pain, felt it herself, and gently reminded him that sometimes peace matters more than popularity. Even after everything, David has not called Perry an enemy. In interviews, his words are measured, filled with reflection rather than hate. His message is clear. Respect and honesty must go hand in hand with loyalty. Without them, loyalty becomes a burden rather than a gift. Fans who grew up watching Mr. Brown now see the character differently, knowing what David went through to keep that character alive. They admire his strength in stepping away and speaking out, and they see Tamila not just as a gospel star, but as the quiet force who stood by her husband's side through it all. The story of David Mann exposes Tyler Perry is bigger than one man's hurt feelings. It is about what happens when faith, friendship, and business collide. It shows the courage it takes to say, "Enough," even when the world expects you to stay silent. It reminds everyone that being loyal does not mean losing your voice. Today, David and Tamila Mann's careers are stronger than ever, but now they belong to them alone. They create music, shows, and moments rooted in what they truly believe. And fans love them not just for the laughter and songs, but for being real. In the end, David Mann's quiet strength speaks louder than any headline. He did not shout or try to destroy Tyler Perry. He spoke gently but firmly, letting fans see the truth. Now, the question is what happens next? Will Perry respond? Will more voices step forward? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. David Mann's choice to speak after years of silence has reminded the world that even in an industry built on make-believe, honesty still matters. His story is not just about betrayal. It is about faith, love, and finding the courage to step out of someone else's shadow and finally stand in your own light. And as fans listen, they see David not just as Mr. Brown, but as a man who dared to tell the truth, and in doing so, helped others find their voices too.